microphone on the hotel shop itself. My name is simple. I'm called Robert Bachika. Not simple. Bachika with a double I. And I am going to be moderating this part of the session. And I'm happy to see all of you. Since we are in a small room, we will try to amplify our voices as the hotel team helps us with the mic. The program, such that we don't waste time, we are going to do a small introduction, but before that, we'll have a prayer. And as we have this prayer, I encourage those to request. I encourage all of us to know that any living creature has to obey the natural law of what? Of death. And in that, I want to request each of you stand up. We will pray a moment of silence. Our departed colleague, brother Frank Abramusi. Some of you might not know him. Some of you might have heard about him, but he's one of us for so many years who have been in civil society. So can we colleagues stand up? Still a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I will request someone to lead us in the prayer. Usum, will you lead us in the prayer?
Dear Lord, thank you for that. I pray that throughout this discussion, we discuss effectively, we understand, and we come up with everything that what is name of faith.
Thank you. And in that way, can you start by yourself? We are going to be moving horizontal.
Once again, my name is Christina. I want to be.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Godfrey Onenfo. I want to carry this in Uganda.
Okay.
My name is Marion. I work with Rain for Water. Rain for Water is the Demosal's organization as program advisor.
Good afternoon. I am Esther Chirinde. I work for City Plus.
Good afternoon, this is my name. I work with Support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mugamba Ondo. I work with the CSO Program Associates. Justice.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jackson Mukindo, Resilience and Climate Justice Coordinator in Uganda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Natif is my name. I work for the Ministry of Water and Environment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ivan is my name, working with Australian Uganda as a project coordinator.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bridget Charles. I work for you as your president.
Good afternoon. My name is
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neon and I'm here. I work with General President at Both Environment. My name is Jenny Travis. I work for the General Environment.
Good afternoon. Penny Namarazi. I work for Center for Economics and Social Rights.
I've done hybrid justice.
That's for everyone. Currently considering about with African state of development. As everyone is studying.
The one at the back, please.
That's happening.
You can't see all these.
That's
Uh-huh.
I am very
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm okay.
Ansangire okubaagana munyamuna maina bandeta mumunda senkato ankola n'ekitongole kye bakiyeta Earth and Rights Initiative ekitongole kikozesa amateeka ebitonde ng'eyayobwidde n'ebyobuntu. Nkola also that General Secretary wa kitongole kyereta Climate Action Network era n'akola nga thematic technical person wa National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. They have one of the three members of the rights advance.
Everyone. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ahmad Basudek. I work with COP30.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Sime. I work with Better Planet Initiative. I also sit on the board of CANU as the vice chair. I'm happy to see all of you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Chirabo, Nakajuri. I work with environmental on that. Also a host of Marina Assistant Network.
You?
Yes, China Musa Emmanuel. I work with Emily.
Okay. Now we know each other. If you didn't get someone's name, find a way how you get to know the person. There is someone we worked with. We used to attend workshops, but I never knew the actual name until someone was trying to paste money and I signed after him. Then I said, hey, that is your name. So it is good to know ourselves by name. That's why me, I always prefer to be called by my first name. But nonetheless, why are we here? Every year, you know, we have one gathering called COP, and this gathering brings so many of us together. And we have had a tradition where the various networks, we plead to work together. Working together has never been easily done. Even you see political parties how they struggle to come to conclusion to future one opposition candidate. That's the same way civil society has struggled for the last, I think, 20 years. To come up with joint modalities of work. And we continue. And we continue to aspire and encourage all of you to come together on the number of issues, to do joint advocacy, to do joint mobilization. Joint mobilization has not been easy. I know of 5 NGOs that worked on a proposal. When the money came, the sharing became tough. These took each other to court, and the friendship died. So joint mobilization has also failed that. Then we said we can agree on commonalities. I remember in 2013, I don't know how many of you were by then, it had to take a few discussions to cause some big international NGOs to work with the small NGOs. on this subject called climate negotiations. Way back in 2000, was it 7? I don't see Kamese, might be in Barara. Kamese used to be the only one attending the COP negotiation, I think, among civil society. Then many of us started sneaking our way through, and thanks to Oxfam, who gave life to CANU, and also thanks to Accord and others who gave life to the ENR CSO network, that in 2009 we agreed to have this thing network. But you see, when we failed to agree to work under one network, CANU was launched, Oxfam, and our late minister, may her soul rest in peace, that was the Honorable Jessica Erio. She was so instrumental, she was pro-civil society. But nonetheless, the journey has not been an easy journey, and we're most delighted that the climate change unit by then opened its doors to civil society, that it moved with us, it built our capacity. By the way, one thing I did tell you, in 2009, government gave civil society full support to go to participate in the COP in Denmark. That was COP15. The reason I'm telling you these things, Frank Amara will just cut the heart problem and the past. So we are living in uncertainty. So Christine Antongo of Environmental Life was the one who was given the first support, 100% by government of Uganda, to join its delegation and also sit on the negotiation table. That is the example. Now, some of you, you'll never get these things. You don't know them because you are not there in 2009. So the journey has been small, and I'm happy to see a number of you today. This shows the sign of convergence. And I pray we continue to converge on a number of things, not only COP, but also other smaller advocacy, Kavera, rights, wetland encroachment, forests, and so many so forth. Therefore, we have continued to, I'm going to use the word force, two networks to speak to each other. That is the Climate Action Network and the Environment and Natural Resources CSO Network. That talk is never easy. There are always people who are invisible, you don't see, but we make sure the two networks talk. And then we encourage the other network to join in the talk. Because once we come together, we have meaningful impact and we can mobilize more. So these talks of ENR and CANU, I think they have lasted for almost 8 years of holding these joint preparatory meetings. Thanks that now we have other networks joining and also moving the talk and working together, leveraging resources. I remember the first meeting, the first pre-COP we worked together, we had a budget of 180 million, and none of us had such money. But I tell you, we mobilized 150 million that we had to plead with some organizations to take back their money. But please, you see, this activity is catered by X, and we can't argue on. So that is the spirit and the beauty when you join resources. Today, if you don't have these resources, there is someone else who has resources to do something similar. And we encourage that constructive mode of work. So today, we want to continue and demonstrate that spirit, but not only among ENR and CANU, but any other network which sees the spirit of togetherness. And as usual, we obviously work with the government and always want to be guided by government and continue to occupy space in this climate change related work. So as I complete my remarks, I want to say we are working on a very tight schedule. COP is just how many months? 2? Because we have September now and October. It's early November. It's going to be an exciting COP, very far, Latin America, and it's going to be expensive in terms of air travel. We don't know what accommodation is. We'll hear from updates from government and so many other logistical things. But then the main question is, what are we taking as civil society? Before we get mixed up with global advocacy issues, what is the civil society in Uganda continuing to push and demand at COP30? And that is why we continue to convene and think through this approach to see how we advance our common cause. Here, my brother, you see, Jackson already has issues of climate finance. Okay? Our colleagues in Terra will continue to demand for issues in agriculture. Our colleagues in other networks will continue to demand for rights and so forth and so on. But that said, we envisage to come up with an actionable roadmap where each of us can identify where we can take it. It's going to be a very open process. There is no lead that Emily will continue to take the lead to prepare the briefing paper, or Oxfam should lead the coming up with the CSO position paper. But we are trying to ensure that everyone can come on board and you make a contribution. In the past, Oxfam used to be a very good pattern. They used to send us 10 of us. I remember Oxfam sent us to Cancun and we enjoyed the beach. As we are working, maybe Jackson, I'm eager to hear the news for COP30. But I know we are working in a very complex situation. I think some of you who are in Seville, you know what happened in financing for development. Donors are saying, stop thinking about aid, and aid is doing what? Is going down and being focused only for humanitarian what? Humanitarian purposes. So meaning that any other related work, we need to think through. And in Uganda, you know, few people want to donate to organizations because the ED is the accountant, is the advocacy officer, is the secretary board. So no one wants to entrust you with these donation. So we have those challenges, but slowly we will improve. So I want to take this opportunity. You cannot discuss my remarks because they are mine. And take the opportunity to welcome the representative of the Climate Change Department, Mr. Bob Natif. Can you join me now?
You feel free, sir. We will also take up through the SQ.
Okay, so thanks very much, Robert, for the very kind welcome and the confidence that you've given us in terms of how you're holding up the entire civil society. My name is Bob Natif. I see lots of familiar faces, but also lots of new faces. I've also been around slightly longer with my colleague Robert, but I realized he's been longer in this space more than myself because I didn't attend COP in 2009. But regardless, I think we've worked closely together. And when he summons me to come here, I come running. So that's why I find myself here. He had requested me to make a presentation. Unfortunately, I'm unable to do it. So I'll give remarks because he knows Uganda, the Green Climate Fund has issued a call for regional presence. So what that means is that GCF wants to set up regional offices within Africa, and that bill is on my head. So I have a meeting in Ministry of Finance before we collect other ministries to come next week and see how we can put our best foot forward. GCF wants to put offices, but also requesting for a lot of free things. So tax waivers, so many immunities and so on and so forth, and those don't lie within our budget. But for us, we think it's a good thing to have this office in Africa. And since it's talking about finance and finance, you never know. Once we get it close, we might maybe tap into it a little more than any other country. There's a theory they call the contagion theory. It says that when you get closer to a rich man, you can also easily become rich. I don't know how true it is, but that's the philosophy that I'm trying to think. But thanks again, Robert, for putting us all together and for making sure I connect with colleagues I've not seen in a long time. And hopefully this discussion is going to go well. Now, my talk, it will be part welcome, but also part a few insights on what happened at the SBs. As you know, I carry the badge of Ambassador Donia, who is the SABSTA chair. So I know a little bit, not as much as he does, but I know a little bit of the detailed nuance that happens in the back end. So that's what I'll throw 1 or 2 or 3 points, and I'll leave you to think through those. Maybe I will contribute to your discussion. So first, I think let's remind ourselves, why do we go for these discussions, whether SBs or COP? And this is a common theme that should always be at the back of our mind. We go for these meetings or negotiations because negotiations are about interests, and interests are material in nature. So I have my own interests, Anna has her own interests, everybody around the table have their own interests. But what makes it complicated is we're now bundled in one group. And the idea is that you're supposed to speak with a common voice. So that becomes overly complicated. You know why? Because the vulnerability of Anna is different from the vulnerability of Bob, is different from the vulnerability of Jackson. But you're all expected to speak with a single voice. And maybe as society, then we ask ourselves, does a common voice mean a long voice? Or how do we make sure a common voice caters for everybody's interest, however disaggregated it is? So you can see the complex dilemma where we're starting from, right? So you have to go into the process of ensuring that you all come towards a common position, which is very challenging, or at least you have building blocks that you create that will lead you to that common position. So that's a key takeaway for you. So for this particular SBs, each SB or each COP, there are priorities. So for example, the incoming presidency sets priorities based on the previous decisions that mandate maybe certain discussions to finish by either a certain SB or a certain COP. So particularly, the incoming COP presidency is Brazil, right? So for them to make sure they have a successful COP, you benchmark based on the decisions that are supposed to come to finish during your time of chairmanship. So there are about 3 key things that Brazil was heavily vested in based on the previous decisions in Dubai. For example, the Just Transition Work Program is supposed to finish by October. So that means that we should have come up with draft conclusions for adoption in Belém. I think the lawyers understand this. There are no particular decisions that we make, but we come up with draft conclusions that give us a basis for adoption in a COP. So those 3 were key for Brazil, and I think for most of the African sector. Why? Because just transition, it's a very huge and complex subject. Initially, it was focused to look around energy transition alone. But energy transition, when we talk about energy transition in Africa, then there are so many disadvantages that are going to come by, because it's not only about energy transition. So it's all about what happens in agriculture, it's all about what happens to the population, it's all about what happens in transport, it's all about what will happen, for example, in that just transition, that we have a whole lot of people that remain unemployed due to the technology that has been introduced because of the just transition. So it kind of has a bearing on the way economies function, but it also has a way of the bearing in terms of how countries want to meet their development objectives. So that's one. The second one is the global goal on adaptation. And I'm sure most of us could have heard about this. So again, the global goal of adaptation comes all the way from Egypt to Dubai, which decision meant that we're supposed to conclude on developing indicators by COP30. But why do we even think about indicators? And why do we even have to support it as Uganda, for instance? Uganda as a country is an adaptation first country. So adaptation first meaning that our emphasis is more on resilience building or improving individual livelihood and well-being, which has not so much to do with mitigation because our emissions are insignificant. But if you recall, if you go to the conventions and all the agreements that we have, there's kind of, the discussion is a bit skewed between mitigation and adaptation. So there's a lot of high profile when it comes to mitigation. And sometimes that is pretty much understandable because you can easily put numbers to adaptation in terms of emission reduction targets, right? So it's easy to quantify and it's easy to point to in terms of what is supposed to be done and what the outcome is supposed to be. So African governments have been arguing, and rightly so, that adaptation profile needs to be raised. And I think we see it being raised through discussions such as global goal on adaptation, all those indicators that they're developing. So there's been a lot of work coming up with those indicators. We have 7 experts from Africa, I think out of about over 100 experts. Africa has 7. But what happens in that discussion is that we're supposed to reduce the indicators, and that's what is referenced in the decision. Reduce indicators to 1,000 in contrast to 3,500 indicators that were submitted by partners. So again, you can see it's a lot of work. And why countries differ with this is that each country wants to see indicators of their interest being referenced within the final 100 indicators that are going to be the landmark indicators that will be best to advance adaptation. So things to do with agriculture, things to do with food security, things to do with infrastructure, housing, and planning. So that we have high-level indicators that have been selected that should come to a conclusion in the end. The final one is the mitigation work program, which, as we know, is emphasis on actions that we are going to do to reduce emissions as key themes that were the basis for at least the incoming presidency to advance this discussion. Now, those priorities have to relate to the different agenda items. So at SB, we had about 54 agenda items, if I remember. So about 21 for Substar and about 30-something for SBI. Now, the challenge, much as we are from a developing country, facilitating a discussion of that kind, each one is allowed to raise anything to be added on the agenda. So out of 54 agenda items, we've had a country X requesting to add a valid agenda item on finance discussions under Article 9.1, and I'll try to explain what that means. So we have LNDC headed by Bolivia suggesting an additional agenda item. Do the legal experts here know that if you have a provisional and annotated agenda, any item suggested by a country automatically, due to the rules of procedure, becomes part and parcel of the agenda. And before you open a session, so you have to first sort out that problem. And that took us about 2 days. This is what the legal experts call I've lost my thought. Okay, so, but regardless, we have, what's it called? We have, as SB chairs, you have to make sure that you discuss with all the parties to agree whether to drop that agenda item or not. But we also know in negotiations, once somebody suggests something, it's very, very hard for them to retract it. It is always a tactic people use that once something is suggested, so it will be up to you, the co-chairs, to make sure that you run through all the other 195 member states to kind of agree to suggestion that Robert has made as an additional agenda item. So that alone can take the whole process 2 days. I'm explaining this so that we understand how long and how difficult these processes are. Because if the agenda is not adopted, then you can't go ahead. But being a developing country, if say, for example, Robert is introducing an additional agenda item on 9.1. So Article 9 is particularly on finance, okay? Now, Article 9.1 is where the difference is, which developing countries were suggesting. So Article 9.1 mandates developed countries to actually provide, and it says developed countries shall provide financial resources. All the previous decisions that we've been getting under discussions of finance have been hot air because they've been smartly committed 9.1. So you can imagine Uganda is chairing, we are a developing country. In our hearts of hearts, we support that agenda item to be included. But also in our hearts of hearts, we want the discussions to go ahead, because if discussions don't open up, we shall have failed. So we go into discussions of how we go about this until the proponent relaxes a little bit, but with a compromise. Relaxes a little bit to say that this agenda item will come again in COP30. And I think Robert was telling me talk about things that will be discussed in COP30. I'll come to NCPD and the other details. So for this coming COP30, we also expect a stalemate when such procedural discussions come around. And there's nothing you can do about it because it is the rule. This is a multi-based system, and whatever anything is raised has to be solved in a smart and legal way possible without hurting anyone. So anyway, that is still a problem that we have to deal with because finance is key, and part of the reason is that we're celebrating, which is very strong, by the way. The developing countries that are raising this additional agenda item are saying we are celebrating 10 years of Paris, so since 2015. But there's not been any robust discussions on delivery of finance. So I think the right timing to introduce was in Bonn, but we did not succeed because of always countries come up with all sorts of excuses. And in the end, because you don't want to be seen to be the one who's collapsing the discussions, somehow developing nations relent with a compromise to say this will come up. So what do we foresee as we go into Brazil? To those that follow through heart, the Brazilian presidency has been trying to guide parties by writing letters. I think yesterday, I saw the 5th letter, but the letter that I'm very cognizant with is the 4th letter, which kind of outlines, this time they've outlined 30 priorities within 6 axes. So, which is a good thing. I think they want to take care of each party's interest and they want to be judged on the basis of being inclusive. So this letter outlines 30 priorities as shaping hope. And of course, as it appears, finance is also at the heart and the center of these discussions, including those other items that I said were supposed to conclude as per the previous decisions to conclude by Belém. So I foresee discussions on this. Again, you could want to pick it up as a society. We got a decision in Baku, which is the new collective quantified goal. It wasn't a good decision at all, but I think in the spirit of compromise, it is what we have. And you could feel sorry for Baku at that time, because if NCQD had failed, because it was also supposed to conclude in Baku. And as I said, this is what host countries do. They make sure that they achieve something, good or bad, based on dictated by previous decisions. So this new collective quantified goal was meant to finish in Baku. So if they hadn't agreed to it, then it would be a big disaster. So we had a decision that has so many bad parameters in terms of expanding the contributor base, because that's what the NCPD does. On our side, we've been pushing back so much in regards to for aligning with the polluter pay principle, then we shouldn't have developing countries contribute to the new collective quantified goal. But that's what this decision points to. But it brings everybody to be a contributor, including contributions from multilateral development funds. And as you know, all African countries, for example, contribute to money within the African Development Bank. So that's the downside. The other downside is the amount of money that was expected based on African countries' needs is far below what was agreed. And even that, it's not mobilization per se. It's just a process. It's not provision, but they are saying they are going to mobilize this the 30 billion, the 300 billion in a circular way as we go into 2035. So that 300 billion is not available. So what they're doing is just a projection from the 100 billion, by the way, So in essence, you can say there's an additional 200 billion. But that 200 billion is not going to be seen until in the next 10 years. So maybe it gives us a bit of food of thought. What then can we best handle this? One way the incoming co-presidency and that outgoing from Belém has decided is to ensure that we have these discussions around the mobilization of the 1.3 trillion, including the mobilization of 300 as we aim for 1.3 as the desirable. But given, as we all know, the fiscal space is shrinking. US has very comfortably pulled out, but I have strong confidence it will come back at a certain point. And with all the financing architecture that we know that is not easily accessible, then it becomes extremely challenging for African countries to implement climate action. On top of that, finance aside, one of the things that we also need to conclude before Belém is NDC submissions. So all countries commit, or we committed many years ago, that we have to respond to this 5-year reporting every after 5 years, and 2025 is at that mark within which we're supposed to report. Maybe the question becomes, what's the consequence of that reporting? So, because the Paris Agreement and the Paris Agreement points to limiting temperature to 1.5 degrees, the essence of these submissions is for countries to submit their plans in how they intend to address emissions within their own territory. And then a synthesis report is done by the Secretariat, and that normally is done either September, October, ahead of COP, so that we know where we stand in terms of the objective that we set ourselves to achieve 10 years ago. Not that it's punitive in any way. I think the only benefit that you can get out of this process is name and shame. Otherwise, the Paris Agreement is not punitive at all. It heavily relies on the member countries' solidarity, member countries' commitment, and member countries' interest and conviction into addressing the challenge ahead of us. But as we know, that's not how things work, because climate change has an economic side. The economic side in a way that as countries advance these indices, you're addressing two complicated trajectories, right? So you're addressing the trajectory of greenhouse gases, which is more pronounced, right? Well, hey, we are contributing this, we are submitting this to address emission reduction on one hand. But the other one, which is not very often talked about, is the trajectory of GDP. Because how do countries develop? Countries develop through industrialization, right? And how do we industrialize? We industrialize by using the that we have available. But the principles and everything else that we have in front of us actually bears a bit of contradiction into how countries must do that. And that's where the beginning of the problem is when it comes to meeting obligations that we set many years ago. So the NCQD discussion continues, and I think it would be of interest to members around this group. There are discussions around, on the adaptation side, we've had all of us develop national adaptation plans. And I know you're big keen to know where is Uganda in developing this national adaptation plan. So the advancing discussions around national adaptation plan is also key for our constituency, because one of the breakthrough discussions coming through national adaptation plans is again discussions around financing. So the argument is we developed all these necessary policy documents, but then how do we take the next step in implementing that we reference within the national adaptation plan? So that still remains a challenge. And when we take it to the negotiations, it's always discarded because they say discussions around finance are not national adaptation discussions do not consider discussions around finance. So that's discussion in another room, which makes things very complicated. Loss and damage is key because we consider that losses will continue to happen even if we did everything possible that there is because of the impact that the emissions that were pumped into the atmosphere many years ago still hold. So the good thing has been this setting up of this loss and damage fund. And now we're trying to work out modalities of how countries could be able to begin accessing monies around loss and damage. But the only dilemma that we are faced with countries like ours, the baseline to point to what constitutes loss and damage. So then I think one of the key things that we might want to do from our side as a ministry is to begin thinking about baselines of what constitutes loss and damage beyond the impacts that we are faced with. Then that would be a good starting point in addressing in responding to loss and damage. Discussions around carbon markets, I think that has successfully concluded as of Baku because I think all the rules are kind of agreed. Now countries are trying to set up their internal regulatory processes to see how they can begin tapping into the expertise and infrastructure that there is available to start working around this. So in a nutshell, I think that's that. It's 20 to 4 o'clock. Tour guys in finance 3:30. I'll request to stop here, but I promise Robert, if you organize any other meeting ahead of Berlin, so I'll come more prepared with a PowerPoint presentation so that people see what I'm clearly talking about. My very last point is, again, as civil society, and I think Robert knows this, we are undergoing transformation within the Africa Group of Negotiators. And this is where we need a bit of advocacy. So I chaired the committee that brought in the presidency of Kenya, and now it's Tanzania. So this is how AGM works. That each African country has a chance to be a chair for 2 years. But there was a bit of a challenge when it came to East Africa, that 2 countries strongly and were keenly interested in being chair, so we had to split the term. But in splitting the term, so chair finished its term, and now we have Tanzania, which is supposed to run up to Bonn COP30. But there's a bit of machinations going around. So the chair wants to use his current chairmanship to extend his term, which is based on for 2 reasons, which is selfish, because we have a CAHOSC and AMSEN decision that requires AGN to be set up a secretariat, which is a good thing, and locate it somewhere, whether African Union Commission or UNEP or anywhere. If we manage to set up a secretariat, then it's going to help in us having solid evidence while in negotiations that the secretariat is able to provide to negotiators at African level. So, and the CAHOSC decision says AMSEN has to, CAHOSC endorses the AMSEN decision, which allows the AGN chair to kind of fast track the setup of this secretariat. But if he's using it to extend his term, so it's going to be a bit bloody in Beleman. I think will be here in part of that. So I thought I would end with that because governance is at the center and is at the heart of our friends from civil society. And once we hear that in corridors in Belen, at least I've given you a bit of breast smoke before we get white smoke in Belen. With that, I'd like to thank you so much. And apologies, I can't stay because of that heavy thing that I have on my shoulders, but I'm always with you at that. Thank you so very much.
They are clapping with one hand. It was really not easy, but I'll make sure whatever you ask, I transmit as is heading to finance. But he has concluded on a good note where I want to start your presentation. their voices, their demand, ActionAid, Oxfam, PAN, they are saying we need to reform the UNFCCC. Then, we have also had within our services, how many of you have attended AGM in closed door meeting? Jackson, I saw you receive time. Yeah, it is informal. We are not reporting you anywhere. Huh? How many have attended AGM apart from Jackson? I know Spam doesn't want to go. What the commissioner, the acting, the assistant commissioners told you is just a piece of, how do you call it? Piece of iceberg. If tip of the iceberg. AGN is one of the most frustrating negotiation groups. Forget about LDC, you know they are poor and they remain poor. You see, if you are poor, you just beg. But there isn't anything to negotiate with someone who doesn't know him or herself. That is AGN. And that is the pain we are trying to give you. And the reality is we need to help our government. Because if we give them this leeway of taking bad manners, even in global multilateral processes, we will continue to suffer. So I want to open up the discussion based on what SC has shared and what you think might have been left out. What we can't answer, we will not and transmit. What we can, we will try to give feedback. But I want you to take note of 3 things we have said. 1, there is a new collective quantified goal decision, which is now being discussed. There is a country called Bolivia. How many of you know Bolivia? It is in Latin America. Bolivia, I hope someone doesn't something, is just another stubborn country. It always brings difficult proposals. So Bolivia is saying we negotiate 9.1. How many of you have read the Paris Agreement? Don't fear. We are now when it was everyone has read. Don't fear. Apart from our code, because our code sponsored the study which government used to ratify the Paris Agreement. So Anna and Onesimus, I don't need to see your hands. Because it is the study you did on the implication that the government ratified. So for you, we know you read the in and out. But now, when you read the Paris Agreement, by the way, this is my Paris Agreement I have negotiated with for the last so many years. Yes, and it has my notes. It has all my notes here. But one thing many of you we have found, when you are reading the Paris Agreement, you only read the agreement. You don't read the decision that adopted the agreement. And yet that is the totality of the Paris Agreement. I remember when Khan, I don't want to undermine, Anton, I know he's online, I saw Susan, when Khan International was pushing African society not to demand money, I asked the then ED, if we don't want us to talk about money, what are we doing? No, we shouldn't appear beggar. Let's talk about substantive. I told them the substantive issue is money. And that is the preamble decision in the Paris Agreement
which became an orphan until last year. There was a preamble decision. It's not in Article 9. Article 9 is the financial agreement. But you know, you never find new collective quantified goal in Article 9. I have a Randy fellow here.
This is Uganda's Climate Change Act. And I just want him to read for us Article 9.
To just compliment what the commissioner said. We are going to read all those articles.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, it's a long article. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Article 9, as you said, clause 1, developed country parties shall provide financial resources to assist developing country parties with respect to both mitigation and adaptation in the continuation of their existing obligations under the convention. Clause 2. Other parties are encouraged to provide or continue to provide such support voluntarily. Clause 3. As part of a global effort, developed country parties should continue to take the lead in mobilizing climate finance from a wide variety of sources, instruments, and channels, noting the significant role of public funds through a variety of actions, including supporting country-driven strategies and taking into account the needs and priorities of developing country parties.
Stop there. Read for us paragraph 5 of the decision given.
Okay.
You don't want, but I know you have sharp eyes.
Actually, we are aggressive. Okay, paragraph 5.4 also decides that in accordance with Article 9, paragraph 3 of the agreement, developed countries intend to continue their existing collective mobilization goal through 2025 in the context of meaningful mitigation action and transparency on implementation prior to 2025. The Conference of Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Paris Agreement, shall set a new collective quantified goal from a flow of $100 billion, taking into account the needs and priorities of developing countries.
Thank you very much.
Now the floor is open. I hope we haven't confused you. We have been reaffirming the communication from Assistant Commissioner, whom you know very well that he supports the co-chairmanship of Ambassador Andonia as the substitute chair. We are the substitute chair, subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice. So this is why we pleaded with him to come and give us the inside information, not the usual you read. The floor is open. Who is anything? Let's move the mic. Questions, comments? I don't see hands. Can you go to the next presentation? Yes, Niona.
Thank you very much, Robert. And so grateful for the Assistant Commissioner giving us those insight remarks. So I think my personal view on climate finance is that as we are pushing, to access more money, as we're pushing for that pledge of 300 billion to 1.3 trillion by 2024, further emphasis, or more emphasis should be put towards accessing what is already available, because we are still failing to do that, majority of the money that is spent in climate finance is accessed by the developed countries, so it goes back to them anyway. So we should further push for us to be able to access the already available funding, so that we can be able to at least utilize that as we are continuing to push for increased climate finance. So that I think has a lot to do with capacity building, a lot of multi-country proposals that they're supposed to write, and they are more attractive for funding. There are a lot of strategies that they need to look out for. So I think that's it, and further discussions can be held with that angle. But I think one thing that I think Assistant Commissioner had probably missed out, maybe because of time, was the gender action plan. I'm a gender person. So for those that would be interested in issues to do with gender and climate change, there's going to be a technical workshop at the Africa Climate Summit, looking at the development of activities that are going to be included in the gender action plan that has to be approved at COP30. So that's another thing that we're looking forward to. Under the 3 issues that you had mentioned, I was hoping that it would be somewhere in there. But I think, of course, you must look at the strong thematic areas in COP. Yeah, so that is definitely fine. And then I've also got some news through the corridors that Uganda is developing. It has launched the process of developing its gender action plan. So as we are sort of pushing for our ideas to come through in the international one, let's also focus on the national one to make sure that the two speak to each other. So that's just a remark from me, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Show your hand.
Thank you. I'll just start by reading to this thing. My name is Kulina Nambavazi. I represent Center for Economic and Social Rights, which is CSR. And I just wanted to also maybe highlight from the previous Assistant Commissioner Martin mentioned. And I think our emphasis also in regards to climate financing, in aspects of quality and quantity. How much from what they're giving countries, given that it's still not the 100 billion, and now looking at 300 billion, but actually the quality of that is that we are worried more that it will not be effective because of them going beyond or going below what they had promised. Below because it's not actually what we intend or want as developing countries. It still doesn't meet the actual, the actual commitment that was supposed to be kept. But in regards to also the angle of reclaiming public finance, when we look at debt instruments or debt financing, because this is not really it's not really financing that is going to be given to us without any conditionality. It is carried over with debt. So given that developing countries have challenges already with the high debt distress that they are in, it's still to say that we need more of reclaiming public finance, looking at grant-based financing, not financing that will be incurred through getting more indebted as developing countries. And also the aspect of MDBs and what that means in this discussion is that we'll be still looking at profits over loss, over people's lives, really. And we are still looking at the emphasis now in this MDBs in this discussion of climate finance is really a tricky one because we continue to see that more it is profit driven and less about how to protect or put into aspect of the human lives and the planet. So still there is a challenge there. And we see that more of these have also created a bit of a challenge in regards to how can we actually hold them accountable as individuals. How do you actually see that even the money that they're giving is not going to still incur more damage to most countries in regards to how they're able to pay back, or even what it means in regards to still the indebtedness. But also in regards to the loss and damage fund, it's also to see really also in a bit of access, how do countries access this? And I'm glad that Assistant Commissioner was able to mention that there is a need for us to look at that also. In what way we align ourselves as Uganda to say that we can be able to have a baseline that would show that we actually in need of this funding. And also in regards to the Green Climate Fund, having officers here, it's just also to see how best can we still position ourselves in that regard to get access to that financing. But also on a side note, in regards to the Africa Climate Summit and the COP and the SP, how do we link all these discussions? Because I feel there is also a bit of challenge in how now already there's a lot that's happening also with this SCS2, which is really happening at this, but we still see that most focus, of course, is on the COP, but we still want to see that we have a whole seamless or mainstream most of these discussions to also kind of take shape in the African Climate Summit and then also proceed to the COP. So that there we also still see that as a country, our delegation is still also taking in charge of having a proper position as well and still anchor most of these discussions that should center around, having a lot of these core issues to do with climate finance, but also the likes of gender as well to take into consideration.
Thank you, Penina. Say another hand there. So those have been comments. Majorly.
Okay, thank you. The first question I just want to understand, not follow this so closely, whether the Lost and Damage Finance and the Global Climate Fund and other are differentiated. There is one part of the other. Then the second thing is, what is the status of agriculture in all this finance? Does it fall under any of these two facilities? I see a lot of emphasis on climate-related financing, climate-related interventions. But then we can see, even as our country has some funds now under the Global Climate Fund, the government is struggling to find money, for example, to deal with the effects of climate change on agriculture. The other time the president was talking about trying to look for money, borrow things from one fund to find irrigation for coffee farmers and so forth. So I don't know whether these funds provide or cater for agriculture specifically. The big is the worst hit sector as far as climate change is concerned within the African continent. Then if not, what is the report? I know that there was something discussed as far as that is concerned. And there was supposed to be some conclusion of the negotiations the following year. So I don't know whether this is now for global, there is a special financing for it, something like that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Just one thing that I wanted to find out. The Brazilians are home regulators. They're like, I think one of those apostles that he writes regulator, which is a good idea. But I think in all of this, we also need to find out what is this that they're trying to communicate. He has summarized it very well, that there are three things. But then now we ask ourselves, what is our interest as a country? Those three things. I've tried to attend a few meetings, for example, the global goal adaptation. And what they are saying is that through the indicators, yeah. But now, what is our interest in there? For me, I want to see what is it that wants out of that. And then when you mention also just transition discussion, we also need to know so that we don't jump on a bandwagon things, but we need to know what is our interest as Uganda, the just transition program. Similarly with the mitigation program. So I want to lens the Ugandan lens on some of these things. Thank you. Okay.
My name is Mugamba Hoenpo from CRT. I have my question which can be answered here on the commissioner on the recent International Court of Justice ruling. It was an advisory opinion. Yes, it was an advisory opinion. but it calls for the high emitters to be accountable, the kind of the private finance that they were committed to providing to the private vulnerable countries. And I don't know whether that can be an entry point on seeing that the kind of commitments that they made are enforced at the moment. Yeah, something around that is what. Thank you
very much. With your permission, may I ask something?
No, please, we are still consultative.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Robert. I think there's something special about the name Robert. One time I was also the name this and Robert Bachika. I was worried of impersonation. So I recently did a media engagement, and I'm happy that the media is now excited about the whole processes. And where I got a one-pager of the discussion of what was planned to COP29 and what is likely to come on COP30. And I'm happy that Bob has been able to bring out some of the issues. I'm currently part of a global network called LEAD, Land Environmental Activists and Vendors. And we're going to discuss discussions about the shape of COP30. I want to ask two issues, my brother, Mr. Sheka, which you can take to this obsession. Number one, the issue of Article 6, which you talked about the carbon trade. We were excited that regulations for the carbon markets were passed and adopted by the ministry. But I'd like to know how far have we gone with the issue of establishing our own carbon registry. Because the information I have is that we are currently being housed by the UNFCCC registry, and I find that quite problematic because we would want to be in charge of our own resource, because our own resource is that we're able to sequester carbon dioxide. We have the natural forest, we have very many private players who are going to agroforestry. That becomes very tricky if now we are going to a sector where we cannot fully control. We are just being housed by somebody else, while other countries actually have their own carbon registries. That's number one. Number two, the issue of begging. And the title of the article is that we acted and we were treated as beggars. And I think that we need to understand that for how long are we as the Africa group, as LDCs, as the Global South, going to pay? Because we're talking about negotiation. My understanding of negotiation is that there is a give and take. There's something you're putting on the table and someone is taking something else. Now, in the conversation that we are involved in with the COP, that you see, in fact, in that discussion on the only Africa, majority of them are actually from the South Africa. There are many Brazilians and South Americans. And of course, you see that they seem to want to take advantage of this. So do you think that colleagues in the room, do you think the chamber has come for us that if we go into the negotiation room, there should be something we're taking on the table? Because, for example, how much carbon dioxide does our current 12.5% of the forest cover? Sequestered, you can go within the room and we say, we have this number of gigatons of carbon dioxide that we absorb from the atmosphere, and therefore we should be able to access this amount of money. But if we are simply going to go on, be done a favor, flouting how we are vulnerable to the effects of climate change, it will be business as usual. And I think that may need to change. Finally, what my previous just talked about the issue of the current advisory from the ICJ. I think it is an opportunity that we need to clutch on. I know, yes, it was advisory, but recently the Secretary General of the UN on 22nd of July issued a communication, and it was very categorical that we need to look at the issues of climate change as an opportunity. In fact, the speech was a moment of opportunity. I got the opportunity of moderating the commission that was put together by the UN country team. And when you look at, for example, the terrain of the climate financing, those in the room that may not be aware, our current NDC is currently put at the rate of $28.1 billion. That's about $5.5 billion per year, up to the year of 2030. Now, we all know what we are suffering from as a country. We have a big public debt of about 106 trillion. We're going to shift about billions of dollars. So now, how do we position ourselves to see that as we go into COP30, we are very clear about what we want? Because as members are asking, if we could not be able to achieve the 100 billion US, then clearly the standard will not come. So is it possible that we can actually look at, for example, our climate financing needs? Because we look at, for example, government has laid out its blueprint under the 1040 growth strategy that should be able to move from 50 billion US dollar to 500 billion US dollar in the next 15 years. But when you look through the entire blueprint, you don't see deliberate focus on how we should be able to mobilize. I think the numbers now is 85% domestic funding and 15%, 85% foreign and 15% domestic. So we need to be very clear as a country that as we go in to negotiate, this is what we need in the next 1 year. I was looking at the report from the Minister of Finance, and I'm happy that Bob is meeting the climate financing. From the time we started the discussion, they are saying that we have only received the 500 million US dollar. That is what we have so far mobilized, both from private sector, government, and civil society. So, should we continue doing the business as usual in Brazil, and then again come back and lament as usual, or we need to have a paradigm shift? What's my recommendation? I am happy that we're starting this convention early enough, and Mr. Robert Machika, thank you for doing that. Last year we started late. I think civil society, we need to support the country team. We have very robust negotiators. As I said, there's another ongoing process. But when we see our negotiators, they need the support from we members of civil society. We need to leverage the technical capacity of most of us in the room to see that our cultural position is very strong, very specific, and on point, so that at the end of the day, we're able to have something. Because in a negotiation, we're better off have something go with other than going with just promises. So I don't know what you think, but I think that from now to November, we should be able to go into closed doors and be able to see that we support the country team, have a very strong, specific, and on point, and negotiation tool, so that we can be able to come out with something as we go to outside. But
thank you very much. We have want to wrap up this.
Yeah.
I hope Anthony is steady to go into the presentation. Please, guys.
Yeah, mine is just clarification.
Can share, then I share mine.
To be in position to give it. Our assistant commissioner.
Yes, assistant.
Yes, he said that he submitted around 9,000 indicators.
3,900.
Okay. I was reading some documents, they talk of 9,000, we talked of 3,000, we talked of 1,000. There's even a document that says that some of those indicators were consolidated to 490. So I needed clarification about, those are different figures. So which figures shall we go with?
Okay. Next. Yes,
So,
you remind us the name for record.
Judith Coxney from African Center for Trade and Development. I've been attending the GGA online meeting about the indicators, and it said the country submitted 9,000 indicators first. So there were so many they had to reduce. So at this point, they reduced to 480. So they need to come with 100 indicators. So for now, they have 480, if they want which they want to reduce to 100.
Thank you, Judith. You see the power of coming together. Now, that has been answered. 100 indicator. Okay? I saw a hand there. I want lawyers to first talk about the opinion your land fellows gave. I was only happy with one thing about lawyers. They are not scientists, and they said we will meet IPCC in November. I said thank you. Me, I rested my case. Yes. Anyone? Okay, as lawyers are thinking through
what they are going to tell us. I just want to speak on what I can as Anthony prepares to take us through the roadmap. Please feel free. Tea is served behind. It's a working tea, so we won't have a break. I told you we are working in tough conditions. Can't afford to buy you lunch, but we can afford to get it. So let's grab the tea and drink it, as also we do the needful. These are a number of comments I've been taking note, and my colleagues have been also taking note. But from Niona and Penny, there was a comment about the money. Now, me, I've closed my mouth about money. Because every time you talk money, people look at you as if they're fool. You know this is what they say. Where is the money? So, we have three monies we are talking about. 300 billion and 1.3 trillion. Which is the money now you are talking about? 300 or 1.3? You know the trillion. 300. Now, the 300 is the NCQE. New collective quantified goal. That is the new goal. Does it include the new money from climate funds and others? Yeah. All sources, including private sector. I don't know what private sector money looks like. You see, that's why people are saying let's reform the UNFCC. 1.3 trillion. It was called Baku Berem Roadmap. Honestly, if you ask me, you don't know that roadmap from Baku to Berem, how it can have 1.3 trillion. But let me be sincere with you. In the negotiation, when you reach a deadlock, penina is bitter. You have to go back home. How do you make penina happy and also Robert happy? Robert will say is EU now. Says can entertain a goal around 300. Remember, the US was not part of this whole thing. They already pulled out. So they left EU and some of you to confuse yourself. So Penina is there angry, saying we need money, our demands are in trillion, and we are not accepting anything in back when we don't see trillion. What can a good negotiator do? Combine the two. Bring EU, who has accepted that also. Give them 300 billion. That. Then how do you balance Penina not to go home peace looking at everyone as dead meat? You create a terminology which will make her happy. Baku Berem roadmap, 1.3 trillion. Then now you have it. Yeah. So it's 1.3 trillion in the thing. So that's the roadmap. And in the roadmap, that is the vision. We want to mobilize 1.3 trillion. But as we mobilize 1.3 trillion, the goal is 300 billion. I hope that has explained that. Now, profit. Yeah, so this one, I accept it. We didn't see. You don't also survive like we have. How do you expect? How do you expect to leave profit out of climate business?
MDB.
You can't chase MDBs out of climate business. Because the reality is, if you have never received the money from the World Bank, you can't get money from any climate fund. You asked me about the loss and damage fund. One of the silent criteria is you should be a recipient of World Bank funds. Like it or not. Now, do you want to keep the World Bank out? The World Bank, remember, it has remained an invisible secretariat of all funds. Jeff is administered by the World Bank. You get me? There is no way you will confuse financial flows with a new boss other than World Bank. So you must meet conditions of getting concessional financing and grants by MDBs. We are here.
I think my argument was that it should be about focusing on grants-based financing, and the aspect of the MDB is that to hold them accountable, you know, how are you going to talk to an MDB or private sector to say, you're giving us this much? And how will you account to say that this was actually how much was going to start helping supporting a community or different countries to actually meet their issues or climate crisis issues? So that is where the gap has been. Their resources, of course, will always be welcome, but on how to hold them accountable and whether that whether that financing is actually going to aspects that could be also that we are not getting to be more innovative as countries. So yes, the grant-based, that's why even as we go on, it's been about reclaiming public finance. Resources that are grant-based and not debt-based.
Thank you, Penina. You see, I've talked with Penina for some good years. But I don't know why Penina is not joining the real me. Now, in 2015, when I was still an active younger man, I had a colleague is from Zambia, snake tax. You know the meaning of snake. We are speaking on behalf of LDCs. When it came on the demand which Penina is making, we had agreed as LDCs that for us, let's not entertain any language and concessional financing. We should demand that we have a paragraph on grant-based financing. This colleague ran away. He left me in the room. Now it was done for LDCs to speak. I wasn't even supposed to speak on behalf of the world. For Zambia. That's why I'm telling you, Africans, you are very bad people. Very bad. So the guy, he knew once the flag was called, LDCs, stepped out to go for show. These are tactics of negotiation. That's why I don't feel bad when you get bad outcomes. So 9.4 is what we managed to get. And it read, the provision of scaled up financial resources should aim to achieve a balance between adaptation and mitigation, taking into account country-driven strategies, priorities, and needs of developing parties, especially those that are particularly vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change and have significant capacity strain, such as LDCs, seeds, small island developing states. Considering, now, this is where they took on my opinion because I refused to move. I told them we are not moving. Considering the need for public and grant-based resources for adaptation. Like that. But it is the weakest part of Article 9 we could get. Now, some of you see when you are here and you want language. For you to get the language the way you need it, for us we wanted public grant-based financing for climate. They refused that. They only gave us for adaptation. To show you that they were so determined and pissed, they brought it as the last sentence and killing it by only saying they are only considering the need. All of you have gone to school considering the need for public and grant-based finance for adaptation is not the same as demanding for public grant-based financing. So that language was watered down. And that's what we have. Status of agriculture negotiations. This one we will follow up. I had a colleague Anna here, but we will follow up to share what is the status. Richard, later. But I think we need to take it to Brazil. Has organized the Rio. He gave us the SDGs. Remember? The reason why Brazil have the trust for you is not a poor developing country. A developing country, but not poor. And it has very experienced negotiators. So you don't bull them. So for me, I see you will get something good. So the letters, maybe it's a tactic Brazil uses to buy consensus. Yes, the colleague from Siatini. The advisor opinion of our land referral. I've left it today. But for me, I concluded this, and I will continue until you hate me. Your advisor opinions, our land referral, they are not binding. We are tired of opinions, we are tired of guidance. In Cancun, when we are negotiating the Red Plus, there was a decision that we should have further guidance on Red Plus. That was fine. Now, lawyers, you have come where we are in a quagmire. We can't count what is climate finance and what is not. We don't know how much emissions are being reduced by who and where. And then you have come back to remind us states have a duty to prevent rising emissions. Yes, that is why they joined the Paris Agreement. States have a duty to cooperate. That's why they go to court. So for me, I didn't say anything. He didn't. You had advisor opinion. Yes, apart from showing off that the National Court of Justice exists. These young students from Fiji filed a case. We have to give a ruling. Which ruling has been an opinion which, you see, most countries have just kept quiet. And there isn't anything bad like to give an opinion and everyone is just quiet. But I've seen some media organizations that what moving around, reinterpreting what the judges said, but let me be clear. The judges also noted that the UNFCCC remains the home for all matters related to climate change. This convention is there. Please don't negate it. It has these two instruments, the Kyoto Protocol, and now the Paris Agreement. We are suffering with the Paris Agreement because between 2014 and 2015, US was bullying everyone. US made it clear. Do not rewrite Kyoto. Do not rewrite Kyoto. What did they mean? Don't bring differentiation here. Do not bring commitments to government here. And that's why you see the Paris Agreement. If you go to some of these interesting parts, read Article 3. Anyone with the Paris Agreement, Article 3 of Paris Agreement, read what? I have my land photo here. Read for us, Article 3. Article 3 of the Paris, by the way, do you people know Article 3 of the Paris Agreement? Some of you even don't read that article. Read it for them. They only read Article 4.
Thank you so much. Before I read Article 3, do you think the opinion breathes life?
Now, you see, oh yeah, that's the problem. You are Article 3. You are bothering me. I'm a facilitator.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Article 3 goes as follows. As the nationally determined contributions to the global response to climate change. All parties are to undertake and communicate ambitious efforts as defined in Articles 4, 7, 9, 10, 11, and 13, with a view to achieving the purpose of this agreement as set out in Article 2. Stop there.
Have you heard the word? Okay, let's do repeat. At the end of them, you read it fast. For us who told, I've suffered. I used to teach physics, mathematics. The pay was poor. I went to university to try also be a tutor for undergraduates. No payroll recognition. Join the civil society, no one wants to pay you 10 million, that's the salary. As nationally determined contribution to the global response to climate change. So they are found that NDCs is global response. All parties, hear the word, all parties. There was no differentiation between developing and developed, but all what? Are to undertake and communicate ambitious efforts defined in Articles 4. Who can tell me Article 4 is about what? Article 4 is about achieving the long-term temperature goal, and that is the article which defines LTS, long-term emission control strategy, and unpacks NDCs for you. Article 7. Article 7. Civil society. We don't think our advocacy is now. Article 7. Global goal and adaptation. Article 9. Finance. Article 10. Civil society. You need more capacity. Okay, Article 11. Article 13. Okay, Article 13. Let me go. Let's check. Article 13. Article 13, in order to build the trust and the confidence to promote effective implementation and enhance transparency framework for action and support with the built-in flexibility, which takes into account parties' different capacities, is hereby established. So, Article 13 is transparency reporting. Article 11. Article 11 is capacity building. Article 11 is capacity building. Article 9 is finance. Now, what Article 3 meant, all of those articles, all of you are supposed to act together. But do you see how these guys of CIA did that? And this is Article 3. So as you are going down, they are already told all of you that we are in this thing together. But remember, the best instrument we had, which was legally binding, was Kyoto Protocol. People negotiated the Kyoto in 1997. We need to continue to thank them and help them. They were the only one who marshaled rich countries to commit and put commitment in writing. That was Annex D of the Kyoto Protocol. It had the quantified emission reduction target for the Annex D country. Paris Agreement, that was our common. That's why Paris Agreement was particularly well crafted. So my colleagues who are talking about the issue of advisory opinion reminding states of their obligations, that negotiated what they can do. But it's good it's good when lawyers come and court. If you have failed to slope the wall in Gaza, maybe you can help in climate. But it's good. You are going to meet the IPCC to understand the science behind. So for me, I look at that exchange in November between the International Court of Justice and IPCC. Because as opposed to other conventions, the climate convention was informed by science. Emissions were rising, parts per million carbon dioxide were growing, and the state government didn't come through. So maybe once we remind you how things move, then you will give better opinion with time. Unit, I think this one has been answered by the colleague. 100 indicators for adaptation. But for now, I still think we are confusing ourselves. Even if we are failing to progress on sustainable development goal indicators. Now you are bringing 100 indicators that are adapted. Then you will go for other indicators under African Union and so many regimes and protocols. But that is multilateral. Okay. So that said, Anthony, I'm sorry I had to eat in your time, but we are in this thing together. Are you ready?
We're gonna pay.
Okay, so colleagues, now to hand over to Anthony. Anthony to take us through the roadmap, what we should be doing. Anthony, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I hope you can see the screen well. Let me put in presentation mode.
No, it's not yet in the slide mode. Yeah, there is slide mode. Over to you, Anthony.
Thanks so much, everyone. I think it qualifies. It's almost good evening. It's still 4 o'clock. So I have like 2-3 slides, but a bit of it is that the issues have been mentioned already. So I'm going to spend more time on the roadmap. As you're aware, we always have our roadmap, but the challenge we normally face is that we sometimes do things at an ad hoc basis, which is not very good. And we end up not really producing quality work. And also sometimes inconveniencing many of you, especially those who provide the resources. But nevertheless, this time we've had prior meetings with some of you. We've been running around trying to engage at individual basis. So we said, one, let's come to a common work program, and then we see how best we can run this roadmap to COP30. So I just have these slides. This slide, I think Commissioner Bob talked about it, Stavachika talked about it, but just for emphasis, priority issues. First, there's a lot of unfinished business from the negotiations in Baku and others, actually. Most of them have been recurring. But the NCQG is a big issue. Operationalization of the fund for addressing loss and damage induced by climate change is still a problem. Article 6, there are a lot of developments in the country, but at the international level, we also need to strengthen those operational mechanisms. And then stock tech, global stock tech. We need to implement that, especially in light of the outcomes of the COP29 and SB62. So we have quite a lot of issues. Some of these are what Commissioner Bob actually talked about. So we need to do a lot. So we have this is a draft. The road to Belém, Brazil, it's a draft. By the way, it is very far. I've just been in Rio, but it is a bit far and very expensive. So those of you are planning to move there, you better get some good money because the accommodation and other things are not as easy as Dubai or back. Back was a bit difficult, but this one I think will be more difficult because you're in a small town there, which is deep in the Amazon. So you don't have so much flexibility. Anyway, on the schedule here, we have quite a number of activities. We have also included the time frame, the cost, which is empty because you don't know who has money yet. And then the lead organization. Then we also put some metrics to monitor the progress. So the first preparatory meeting, which I believe we are having, or part of it, we're having today, courtesy of the two networks, CNR and the CSO, I mean, and NR CSO and CANU, and then our partners, WWF and Forest of the World. Activity number 2, we need to have notification to CSOs about COP30 registration. Already I've seen some notification from the civil society, which ended last week. But I think at the national level, Mr. Wachika will tell us we still have some flexibility. But from the CAN international side, I saw just came in quicker and vanished. But the process is going on, like for government, is going on. I think we need to take care of this. Those of you who have who receive notification from the UNFCCC should be able to monitor this. They come. And then, yeah, so if we receive on our side, we will notify you. But already for CAN International, the one which normally gives us as CAN, and I saw them, they had kind of, I think they had only 2 slots, which could have been taken over by some of our sister nodes. So it's very competitive. Then we have planning meetings. We intend to have the accreditation, about 10 CSOs. But as you know, these days for government, they give just very few slots. Sometimes as the maximum they ever give now is 4. But we shall lobby the department probably to increase the slots. I'm told so there are people who abuse the privileges given to those badges. Probably that's why government could have, tightened the belt a bit. Then we have planning meetings between now and October, about 3 meetings, and all of you are invited to participate, to organize, to mobilize, to do everything to make sure that these meetings take place. Don't leave it to CAN and Emily. CAN is just a platform. It is you people who are supposed to do the job. Then we have the Africa Climate Summit. I've seen some preparations going on. I think accreditation has been going on. So those who intend to participate, I think you need to check on the websites and do the apply for accreditation. I'm not sure whether it has ended or not. I haven't checked this week. But there's been an ongoing accreditation for the Africa Climate Summit, which is due on, I think, 6th September or so, around that time. So I encourage all of you to check. And if you want to participate physically, please get accreditation. There are procedures there. Then we also intend to organize thematic group meetings, the number of thematic working groups. Of course, we used to have the standard ones. I think there are about 5 or 6. That's adaptation, mitigation. Then those are the means of implementation, finance, capacity building, legal and policy. And then there's gender. Although nowadays we have increased the health and climate change, there's also children thematic working group. Yeah, so you see they keep growing there. But for government, they have already started. I think this week there are some thematic working group meetings. On our part, we need to organize. So I'm encouraging members to look into your budgets. Normally, the thematic working group meetings are not for so many people. So if you can host about 15, on average 15 participants, that's okay. It's only adaptation and finance, I think, which have like 20 people plus. But most of the others, some like technology have actually no more than 5 or 6 participants. So members need to find small budgets and put here within about 1 million, 2 million, you can organize 1 or 2 meetings. Yes. Then we need to develop the COP30 CSO briefing paper. We need to get this thing done as early as possible. Issues must be picked now. And by the end of September, we don't want to reach October when we still don't even have a draft. So we need to get these issues early enough. Some have been highlighted. Some, I think we need to read a lot on the outcome of the SB 62. So can you and the ENRCS will take lead on this? And of course, the end product will be a briefing paper, which will be developed and disseminated. We sometimes do physical copies if we have resources, or if we don't have, then we do the digital resources, the digital copies. So I encourage members, especially the group leaders of these thematic working groups. I forgot one thing. The group leaders for the thematic working groups need to really wake up, because we are having challenges with mobilizing members under these groups. So we need the leadership of these groups to really take action, and not wait for the secretariats of ANR and then can you. Yeah, so the structure of thematic working groups needs to be really addressed. Members, I hope you take note. So then we also intend to do the media campaign and outreach on COP30. This involves the conventional approach, the radio, TV talk shows, articles, press conferences, and then the new kids on the block, those guys, or those of you who are very good at TikTok, Facebook, X, Instagram, all these things, you need to pull our socks together. So we need funds here and capacity. So if you have in your institution, if you have a strong communications department, this is where we need you. And of course, you come with some money. We need some money. Media is very expensive. Yes, then we shall also develop at the National Climate Forum, Climate Change Forum, we normally make presentation. So it's normally an extract actually of the other one of the briefing paper. So we intend also to produce some physical copies, and we also intend to have some of you members participate in that meeting. So we need, again, support here. We need it costs a bit of money to produce these papers. I think we have been working sometimes Pre-Talk Plus, Emily, Canyon Secretariat. sometimes we work overnight to, get these products across. Like the last one, we had to work a lot to have like one the abridged version and then the main version. Yes. Then we shall also have in October, about 29th to 31st of October, we intend to have the CSO preparatory workshop for COP30, where we intend to invite about 120 members, including the media and the private sector actors. So you mark on your calendar on 29th and 31st of October, we shall have our meeting. Then November, I think mid-November, that's when the COP event is starting. We intend to participate. For those of you who have resources, just come back, you need around $5,000 to $8,000, depending on the time you're gonna stay there. So you need to do to prepare yourselves financially. So then, as usual, we normally have a feedback meeting for the COP, the outcome from the COP. So, and that will be in the first quarter of next year, 2026, God willing, and about 200 participants expected, both from government and civil society or non-state actors. Yes. So this is the roadmap that we have. You can see here the dates. These dates are tentative. There's the costs, the column for cost. It is still empty. It means that you require money. There's a column on who is taking lead. We normally, it is the networks, the secretariats that take lead, but the actual work is done by you members. This time I've also put indicators to enable you to track, for those of you who want to put in some little resources. So you can ask your donor that here there's a roadmap, given tangible indicators. Thanks so much. But before I forget, on around 26th, 27th of this month, there's going to be a meeting by the World Bank at Serena. So you might receive a communication from the World Bank. They are going to be sharing, I think, the state of climate or something like that. The details will come for Uganda. So I didn't want to forget this. It is not part of the roadmap, but just to let you know that there's an opportunity for that engagement with the World Bank. You are aware that the World Bank now is a big player in this conversation. So you need to, your face and name need to be known there, because even the funding has changed, the geopolitics has changed, and now things are going through those entities. So Mr. Bachika, thanks so much. This is the roadmap, and we expect members to provide feedback. I'm going to request Emily to have this document shared on Google Docs. Then members can self-input their contribution, if that's fine. So thanks so much.
that statement. Where is my co-MC? So the floor is open. I saw hands. We first take the file. Anton, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
But I wanted to hear from Oxfam. Okay, thank you so much, Robert and Anthony, for the presentation. I think for me, the roadmap is a good one, but of course, it would be good if it is funded. But I know that it will be funded. I know the funders are here. The funders are already in the room. The user surface, like we did it last year, today already starts thinking of how we're going to organize. But of course, our convener is coming, and yes, that one. So the two again should organize us. We have some resources that we spare for this year to support the national forum together with PELAM and other partners like we did last year. I think we will still continue supporting that this year. So no worries, Anthony. Make sure that you organize and convene us as actors in that area. We also have the development of the CSO briefing paper. I think that one also, but I think that one is announced to the society meeting before the national forum. So again, that society meeting we will support it for this year. The sponsorship of COP, I think that one we are really not there. We have a lot of restrictions on the available support. I think if it will be available, it will be for the young people, a few young people. Yes, a few young people that want to go and participate in COP. No, I can't promise. I can't promise now. After they talked about the African Climate Week in Addis Ababa, we are working with the National Association of Women Organizations in Uganda who have registered a side event. And so Oxfam is supporting them to go and do that in Addis Ababa. At least that one we're supporting. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's what I can say. Did you respond to Geoffrey's agricultural thing?
I say we will transmit to CCE.
Okay.
Got back.
Okay.
Yes.
But what I can give him as an update is quickly, I think agriculture, there's not much now under discussion. Because from the previous scopes that I attended, I was following up on agriculture. And the status was that from championship, already we had agreed on an implementation plan. The technical discussion took 5 years and ended on the technical issues and agriculture that we need to front for the UNFCCC. And already you can see that some countries are already accessing money on climate smart agriculture. So one would say that I think implementation of the long-term plan for agriculture already taking place. Yeah, I think that's the hope that we have, but we will continue to up on how much being injected in the
Thank you very much. So we have changes on 2 activities from Oxfam. We have the preparatory workshop scheduled between 29th to 31st. Those are 3 days. And then the CSO position paper during the forum. Is that it? During the forum, yeah. Excellent. I just want the moderators to take it. Please, yes, remove the mic.
Chair, they also committed to find.
Oh, younger people. I forgot that. Oh, some also pledged to support among the 10 CSO, but you must be young. And you shouldn't have a stomach like mine. Yes, very young.
Okay, I'm going to from Carter. Well, we are not doing the space for the last of these 2 years. That's something I must say. And also precisely because we have been having some internal reflection on the way forward, and we are about to conclude it. Because since the death of the exit of Monsieur Sansin, we have had a new director who took charge of character and trying to shape it in a different direction. And I think one of the things that has come up prominently in this area is to create our framework, which is largely Catholic-based framework that will try to accommodate the many Catholic agencies in the country who are not part of any of these networks. Can you, NRC, and so on. So we have the different countries in the country, such as CRS, PRE-COP30, and so forth. We need them here under what we call the country nationalism, member organizations. And they have resources, but because they cannot easily come to the CSO, one of the easiest avenues to tap money from them is really the national caritas. So then we have the 19 caritas in the country, in the 19 dioceses, doing a lot of work in the areas of environment, climate change, agriculture, health, education, and so on. Now, these are not part of any of these networks, and yet they could make very important contributions. And then we have other Catholic agencies such as John Paul II Justice and Peace Center for the 4 religious congregations, the site of Jesus with the Jesuits, and then the Holy Cross, Hill, and so on. So this is also a very strong framework. Then we have the Association of Religious in Uganda, very religious congregations. So it networks all the congregations of sisters, religious sisters in the country, and also of men that but because of the configuration of CSOs, they are not part of this. And yet they all have some component of climate change and environment. So the thinking at Caritas is to try to create, and then that those departments within the Catholic Secretariat, the Uganda Episcopal Conference, Education Department, we have got our media houses that have particular programs on climate change and environment, which is here, the Uganda Catholic Television, and so on. Now, what we are trying to, the new leadership is of the view that we should create a network which is Catholic-based, that however would work as a partner with the rest of the other stakeholders, with other networks. And that's why I think, Anthony, we are not able to respond in terms of paying membership for the time being, because we are trying to build this. But that said, we are going to pursue a process. We have some budget, we have some money that can finance 1 or 2 of the thematic group meetings, and also make a contribution to the CSO position paper, the National Climate Change Forum, whatever problem is with us. So we can probably do that. And it will also be an important opportunity to expose these new structures, new structures that are doing something on climate change. That's the thing. We had a consortium during the NAMCO celebrations every year. We have a consortium of Catholic agencies. This time we brought from civil society organizations as well. We are focusing on the theme of the World Environment Day in Namibia, including tree planting, and now this is the main, we are making this a tradition. Every animated houses every year incorporate, environmental and climate change issues in the planning for the center. So that even the sum of our issues like the that they reflect this, and we have talked to them is willing to take up this and be an active partner in this. So we have people who work with the Ladato Sea Center, for example. The thing the good work was climate change, but we are going to bring these Catholic agencies. That money is here and there. So we believe that if we can have them, and then that can probably be a big contribution to our efforts together, because then we can still work as partners, very close partners with the CANU, with the ENRS, CSO, and so forth. I know we can have several networks. There's no problem to that. And as long as each one of them can add value to what is happening. So this is what's happening at Caritas currently. Because I'm speaking to my mate, but I've been very silent. I've not been talking about it. So today I'm talking about it. But to say, for this particular COP, we have some budget. We are definitely going to come on board. But don't be surprised if we come with so many Catholic agencies. Okay? So many of them, probably. for a good number of them. So this is what I can say. Then if there is any other thing, we will announce with the time after my discussion with the director and the editor. But for the time being, I know we can do the thematic because we have been leading the mitigation for some time. Maybe we can still focus on mitigation, adaptation. I don't know, we shall see maybe both, maybe one, but also the other one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Level, for that powerful commitment. I thank you for the call, the clarion call by Mr. Olimwa about the need for us as heads of thematic groups to wake up. I had to chair the last 2 years I've chaired the climate finance thematic group, and I therefore must wake up. So I show one who are the members of the climate finance thematic group are here. Those in the room, my senior Robert Bachika. By way of arrangement, is that the heads of the thematic groups are like junior negotiators, the senior negotiators. So the one because of the climate finance is the negotiator for climate finance, and the head of climate finance is the So those that bring climate finance, please let us hit the road running, mobilize ourselves, and then start the Zoom calls, and then to see that we contributed their position paper and a briefing paper, and then other groups can also wake up and really do. Last year, Oxfam, our big boys and Accord, last year, have a family team, and I think up to now we should talk on you for the key. All right, so thank you so much. But I think that this is something we need to all of us embrace, because as I said earlier on in my earlier submissions, although government usually has its own roadmap, but we usually move hand in hand, especially supporting that process. And as Bob has committed himself that next time we engage is going to actually come with PowerPoints, I think that is a good way of further moving in the same direction to see that we have a better World Cup this year.
This idea was a question whether the young people, I think to be specific, Oxfam is working with Fridays for Future Uganda under the Polita Base campaign, which is a global campaign. And we are again supporting them to go and do campaign work around COP30. So they are being supported. They will also be in Addis Ababa for the same force.
Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues and the facilitator. First of all, I must appreciate the fact that this time around we started a little bit early, not very early as we had anticipated, but at least we are doing very well. And I think I have pressurized many people, at least forgive me, because I was not pressurizing the team, but I was complaining. But I'm happy that now we are here. One, definitely we pledge our support as a board. When we don't have the money, at least we contribute the technical capacity. The individuals will be there to provide the necessary support, especially so when it comes to position paper and the rest of that. But definitely we will support the national meeting. We'll make a contribution. I think we can also make a contribution to the preparation of the briefing paper, both the technical and some resources. I think we can, depending on the, we get to know early enough what the technical, sorry, the thematic groups take to have meetings. We can see the kind of support we can provide, because that's where
really issues are supposed to be generated from. So once you don't have strong input in there, then you also risk having less input at the national level, and then of course the development of the position later. So I think those are three areas where I think we can provide some support, and you can count on us for this year, and certainly for the subsequent year as well. We will see the feedback workshop. At times it's about when these events come on board. Last time we had money that we could not spend because the processes and our budget cycle seemed not to start. So that's why I was really pressurizing the team so that we start early, so that we don't have the resources to support the process, and then you're not able to spend the resources. And when you don't spend the resources, you know what happens. Then you take back the resources. Really, that's very, very unfair. Or you apply the resources, you put them to a different purpose, and then finally you don't achieve what you wanted to achieve with the resources. But I'm happy now, we should be able to get on board if we keep these timelines. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for the presentation. My name is Leona Nape, and I'm speaking on behalf of Regenerate Africa. So Regenerate Africa will definitely participating in the Africa Climate Summit. I think as a member of the coalition, that's a contribution. We are willing to bring back that feedback. And then there's technically feedback. So we might not be able to support people but to go, but we'll definitely present the network. And then for the thematic group meetings, we are going to support two of those meetings, but specifically the ones on gender and the one on health. Yes. But we will also be participating in others just to provide, any technical information that will be collecting. And then the development of the COP30 position paper definitely will also support that, both technically and financially if needed. Sometimes the finalization is done through the thematic group meetings, but usually there is a small team, I believe, that comes and sits down to work on the paper, so we support that. And then the national climate, that one will be there, the National Climate Change Forum. So we'll also support that because we've done that, I think, over the past 2 years in collaboration with Canada, ENR, CSO Network, and PELAM, and Expand, and Anti-Commission. Yes, we'll also, participation at COP30, we can't do that for it, sorry. But we are willing to provide feedback from COP. And then the COP30 feedback workshop, yes, we also always supported that one in collaboration with the Ministry of Water and Environment during the Water and Environment Week. So we'll be supporting that forum as well. Thank you.
From our hands.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a couple of discussions before with some of the senior in the chemical department, and they were a bit concerned about participation of different groups, and that participation is basically in terms of the local context. So people go participating in discussions, a couple of CSOs participating in workshops, we discuss. Then the general majority, such as what we consider to be the private sector, couple of artists are not part of this process. So we had thought of an idea of localized what is being discussed during the COP30 here in the local context, working with artists, working with people within the creative industry. It was an idea that I think the climate change department is still working with through Anastasia, where we want to, I say the National Climate Change Forum, we were suggesting symposium and expo. So for us, I think if we are able to put these ideas together, we could support in many cases. Be part of those who contribute to showcasing, mobilizing different participants in the space, including the private sector, the young people, and the different categories. Because I see copies, pollution paper, and all that, but the level of exposure, the other silent listeners is not that. So we want to use the creative space to see how best we can actually interpret this information and disseminate it in a different way. I think our target was our discussion with the party discussion with Honorable Marco, because she was quite interested in this, but she was asking, where are we now, the creative artists in this space? Are we left out? Are these issues for you guys and stuff like that? So I think if we can creatively think of a way this information can reach out and then engage them with specific activities, probably either at the ministry or part of the build-up activation, like Mr. From our court suggested. Yes. Yeah, so that's for me what I think we could actually be able to do. I've seen ideas of cycling for COP in different ways and stuff like that. Something I can feel attention, because the spread of discussions on energy transition, for example, are limited to particular things. How about the other sectors? You're saying the transport sector is quite important. Who are the players in the transport sector? Are they the CSO or the private actors like EV zones? Have so many of these that can actually be part of the process to showcase, but also to demonstrate that there's a need for us to collaborate more. Thank you so much.
Okay, so there is no. Oh.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I'm starting with things because going home, jam and everything, so I'll be quite brief. I actually was not going to speak because we are not registered members of either network, and that is not intended, but we are members of OWASNET, the Uganda Water Sanitation Network, which is a civil society network, and we chair a working group on climate change and integrated water resource management. Now, when I'm sitting here, I was actually observing, because there is high interest in my own organization to be a member of this network. We will be in Brazil, but we're kind of trying to understand the context of how we are organizing towards that, and it would be of my interest as well to understand how that is building up. But I think importantly, being part of another civil society network, where we cross-fertilize, especially to provide input, technical input to this process. So how does OWASNET, okay, we as chair of the working group in OWASNET that is related to this particular forum, cross-fertilize that and try to kind of play that conduit role that we bring from OWASNET into CANU and ENR CSO. That was my big question I'm still grappling to answer. But in terms of us being members of this network, you see the question you're still pondering with, because of course in such a forum, you're not able to get other details. I could relate with the leadership of working groups, because I am one under harassment and I know the challenges that are in there. But overall, we want to kind of see where can we come in terms of, first of all, being a part of the network. But thereafter, what happens after March 2026? Is it usually that we come together in this, or are there other engagements, a bit away that lead us into this?
Okay. Sending my mic to.
Yes. Maybe a big suggestion, so the discussion doesn't end here. Suggesting if there's a window of time that we could give organizations to take back the roadmap to organizational level and find out feedback from us here. Because I know for sure, Anthony, in his presentation mentioned organizations, strong communication departments. Yes, we do have a strong communication department. We can contribute to the media campaign and some of these other activities, but to get a more concrete response. We could have a time that we can discuss and let's get back to maybe commitments from that way.
Thank you very much. I'm Wesker, the chairperson of the ENR CSO. I would like to reaffirm that we shall do everything we can to support the process. We are scattered about the whole roadmap to Belem. We shall do everything we can, but possibly or probably I would like to request that the secretary say something in particular. The secretary, yes. Move the microphone to that lady.
Me, I'm a servant.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, apologies for I came in a bit late. I want to very much on that. Yes, the commitment is there, but you see, we are coordinating. When you have an opportunity and people are putting up hands and pledging to do things here and there, you have to first let them speak. But yes, we are fully involved, and you know, she was asking me, now we can't say anything, because she was saying anything that private here and there. And she said, now ENR says, oh, let's talk about it. But yes, can you, a bit of a difference is that ENR says only talk is hosted at environmental land. So as we do all these things, we also have an institution called the environmental land. I think we can tell that difference. Yes, but as coordinators and the secretariat, automatically we will put in somebody in that national climate change for us. We are very willing to coordinate you, and I'm thanking everyone for being here. But then also, the merger, I call upon the thematic working group on climate change, because we also have thematic working groups within that network, but there is one specifically on climate change. Emily has always pushed it forward. We really are proud, but now there is also new leadership to which Emily is under. So now the ball is in your court, and I see members here that are part of that climate change thing. So we also need to organize such that even as we push as a secretariat, still the thematic working group is really on top of the coordination and support of all those. As a environmental alert, if there is any orphaned thematic working group, yeah, we shall support it.
Oh, we have.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Most welcome.
Want to wrap up?
Duties of Civil African Center for Trade and Development, as discussing with the AD here, we're going to contribute to the development of sales of different people, but we are going to first discuss internally, then we shall get back to
Thank you, Akitade. Colleagues, I don't want to keep you anymore. Anthony, any concluding remark? Because we're going to closing. People have to pick children.
I'm here with my chairperson. He wants to say hi before you close, Philip.
It's a very important project in Kenya.
Can you say hi?
Mr. Bachika and the colleagues, thank you very much for putting this together. I've been following the conversation and so far so good. I want to thank each and everybody. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks so much, Philip, for those quick remarks. Yes, yeah, thanks members for the commitments. Thanks for, first of all, even accepting to get to this meeting, because I know everybody is very, very busy. So to get all of you, you cannot take it for granted that you've been able to find the time to come, even commit resources. I encourage those who haven't committed, please, let's come on board. It doesn't matter how much you have. Whether you provide the technical support, it is still welcome. Moral support is still welcome. But let's try as much as possible to run this process within the given time. I have seen the comment from the government team saying they are going to also share the roadmap and try to find some points of synergy, which we welcome, of course. So let's continue to mobilize more resources. You can actually check with the other partners or viewers. These processes are very important. We have a neutral ground. We accept all the ideas. We practice fair play in all our dealings with members. It's a member-driven issue. It's not the secretariat of CAN or ENR or FMNR or so. So I think moving forward, I didn't see, maybe after we get the report, we should be able to get back to you and do the real action now. This was planning, now we need the real action on the ground. So Emily and Kanyu and the ENR social network will be reaching out to all of you. But like, I don't want to forget, let's have this document on Google Docs. Then we input there, it makes work easier for everybody. So Mr. Bachika, if you could do that, we'll be very happy. We'll be good to engage. So thanks so much for now. I look forward to the next engagement. Yeah. Let me stop here. I know it's already 5:30.
And Anthony, it is getting late. We thought you would talk about Kanye AGM, but since you don't want to talk about AGM, there was also a question on the linkages.
Okay.
Also the linkage with the WASNet. Why don't you
invite? Yes, Mr. Bachika, yeah, we're going to have our AGM on the 29th of this month. It's going to be done virtually. I encourage all members to meet their obligation. Yeah, because you know, in these networks, you can be a member, you attend, but when it comes to the crucial matters, you may not be able to participate effectively. Yeah, for the relationship with USNet, I think I've talked to the ED. We had a meeting, just an informal meeting on Monday in Mango. We have agreed to have follow-up meetings with the USNet. We used to work together, but somehow I think the line broke a bit. But we agreed in principle that we need to have everybody on board. So I think we'll do the formal things to bring USNet on board, because it also has quite a big number of members who actually, some of them actually are our members. So it becomes a very strategic, USNet is a strategic partner. You know, for those of you who don't know, if you're in a global water partnership, issues of climate change are looked at from the water angle, either too much or too little. For those of you like Gusta there knows, if I talk about the global water partnership. climate change is either what is too much or it is too little. For them, that's how they understand it. But and for USNet, it brings on board quite good strength to the network. So we will engage there. We'll engage. We'll do the formalities. So I don't know whether there's anything else to comment on. The World Bank meeting, please don't forget. You will receive, it's not us who invite, but the World Bank will invite themselves. So you keep checking on your emails. Yeah.
Anthony, thank you for letting us know we are talking already with USNet, and we look forward to working with many partners. Please feel free, and other networks are welcome. For the first preparatory meeting, yes, this has been done. I think we need to applaud each other. But I want to say that it has really met our expected objective. We are looking at a pledging session, which we have had, and we now will be asking the networks, institutions, to draw up matrix now to follow up these pledges and that's to maximize them. Also to cost these activities. I know why in the past we used to fear costing. If you take someone a budget of 1 billion, see what's wrong with you. But now for those activities which have been selected, I think we should start costing them. For the thematic group meetings, since we're already in August, mid-August, I think the first runners need to start up. We have had. There is already momentum to advance. And for those organizations that have requested for more time, I think we need to respect that request. We give you time. This is going to be shared with all of you, like I said, we will do Google Doc, but also we will send this attachment to all your emails. Feel free to engage your colleagues from the various networks and institutions. And for us, as Emily, we will continue to play this facilitating role, make sure that we bring you together to play more. And in that spirit, each of you is entitled to transport refund this afternoon, but as you are getting out, see this person on this computer, confirm your names, that's that you don't delay sharing your facilitation. For the conclusions of this meeting, we will share them for close of business tomorrow, including these pledges and what has been confirmed so far. About the accreditation, CSO accreditation is almost closing. For those accredited organizations, you know, the deadline is around 18th August, meaning that as usual, you will run to government for accreditation from August until the start of the fall. Brazil has already said it has very limited space. So the same criteria which is applied in Bonn might apply to Brazil. You know what the criteria means? CSOs are very small slot. Then government has the liberty to do what it wants. So colleagues, approach other networks. As Emily, we are not again extending open accreditation this year, so we started because of this limitation. We don't want to put a rope in our neck that we refuse to cooperate with us. But also, there are some of you who have bad manner who have written UNFCCC that NGOs charge you money for accreditation. So the UNFCCC has written to almost all designated contact points of African organizations and sent a serious warning. Please, Emily, we don't charge accreditation. If there's anyone we have ever charged the payment, put up your hand. We are a bit transparent. Yeah, we don't charge people. But that's why we are not accrediting anyone this time.
Bonn review for Emily's Cup. Please talk to Can International, talk to Oxfam, talk to other big networks. Things a bit tight. As I conclude, I want to say thank you very much. We will follow up and see if we can have a second preparatory meeting in 2 weeks' time, with at least now the pledging organization to firm up these pledges and kickstart implementation of the roadmap. I want to repeat, the next preparatory meeting will be for the pledging organization, such that we can firm up how we implement the roadmap. But also we encourage the thematic heads of our working groups. I think we need to also have a clear schedule when this meeting should be and how many you have had. Regenerate and others are saying that they are eager to support or funding thematic groups. Open checks are there for you, but you better start working. We have delayed you. Apologies. It's really past 5:30. Look forward to meeting with some of you in 2 weeks' time from now. Very good evening. Goodbye. Check your names. A group photo of colleagues. Now, how do we handle it? Do we check as we go or do we proceed? Oh, we 12.